Hey, you watching right now, have you liked? Have you commented? Have you subscribed? Have you shared? If not, take a moment and do so, because that lets us know that you're loving what we do and helping us expand our community. So go ahead, do it right now. We'll wait. Well, Crystal, it's about that time. We are going to go to the Metaphysical Corner.
Oh my God, this is my favorite part of the pod.
Mine too. Mine too. Yes. The people are applauding for us.
I know, they just won't stop.
Come on. It was the encore. It was the encore.
It was. All right, so in
what
today's...
What were you moving? I saw you moving something.
I was moving something that I'm going to share with you because as you already know, Bryan, in this episode of Metaphysical Corner, we are going to be sharing our 5 most powerful, most fascinating, life-changing spiritual / metaphysical books. And I'll have you know, right over there, I have so many books, and these books have changed my life, Bryan. So it was hard for me to choose just 5 books, but I did it. And here they are. What about you? Do you got 5 books for us? You got them too?
I have 10, and I just got to pull out 5.
Well, you better pick 5.
I'm going to pick 5.
5 out of 10 that are fabulous. Now, so how do you want to do this? Do you want me to do one, you to do one? Do you want me to do 5 and then you to do 5? What do you want to do?
We could go back and forth, 1.
Okay.
I think that's fabulous. You go.
Okay, I will start with my first book. Now, this book is so short. It's only 33 pages, and it's got that big font for old people that I love. So it's really, if it's only 33 pages with big font, it's probably like 15 pages. It's a short book, but it will change your life. It is Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard. This book right here is basically the blueprint of how to manifest anything that you want. And it's written in such a concise way. It's a little old-timey because of course, Neville Goddard died, I think, in the early 70s. So he came up in the 40s, 50s, 60s, kind of writes in that way. But it is certainly understandable, and it gives you the mechanics of manifestation. Now, every year, at least once a year, I teach on this. I do it live on my YouTube channel, or I'll do it in Facebook, or I'll do it on a podcast. But every year we got to get into Feeling is the Secret, because that is how important of a work I believe it is. Have you ever read it? Don't prepare, Kate.
No, I have not read it, but it is on my list. Well, but you do know that I haven't been reading as much as I should, and I'm getting back into reading again, and that is on my list.
You can get all of Neville's works from Resurrection, which is a compilation on Audible. You can listen to it if you want to.
I think I want to read it. I want to get back into reading.
We already talked about how reading on
feeling.
An electronic device does something to your... It actually doesn't help your reading comprehension. Actually, reading a book is good energy, and this is a great place to start. Plus, it's short, so you can read it in like an hour. Well, maybe a little longer if you haven't read in a while, but you know what I mean.
What are you insinuating?
I'm nothing. Not a thing. All right, what's your first book?
My first book
so excited.
Is a book that changed my life after my mom passed, which was 2 years ago. And I'd always been very sensitive to energy, and I just knew something was shifting, and I was changing energetically, and I didn't know what was going to come of it because I was kind of in the throes of the grief process, but I knew something was coming out of it. And when at the moment of my mom's passing, it literally struck me. We exchanged energy at the moment of her passing, and it like knocked me off my socks. But it changed my life, and it is by a wonderful lady named Penelope Quest, and the book is Reiki for Life. Mm-hmm. This book takes you through. It's a thick book. It is a thick book, but it takes you through. It's the complete guide to Reiki practice, and that is Reiki level 1, 2, and 3. Wow. It really completely helped me make... I mean, I've always known what Reiki was, and I've always been able to do a bit of energy work, but man, this really helped me hone in and sharpen. And then I studied Reiki through a Reiki master and became a certified Reiki master. But this book was the book that I read before I made the decision to find a Reiki master and really get into it. And it blew my mind. It's an amazing book, and I still use it as a reference.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you.
So
Thank
I love
you.
that book.
All right. My second book that I love is Kundalini by Gopi Krishna. Now this book, I want to say he was born, was it the 20s? I don't know what I'm talking about. I make things up. Commentary was from 1967. This is an older book, let's just say. And this is written in kind of an old-timey sort of way. So it's not the easiest read necessarily. But once you get into it, it's kind of like Shakespeare. Once you click into it, like you're there, you're so present with it. Anyway, this is the story of a gentleman named Gopi Krishna who liked to meditate. And it wasn't necessarily for spiritual reasons. It was really just because it felt so good. And so he would spend hours in meditation. And because of this, he awoke his Kundalini, but he didn't do it the right way. And because of that, he experienced what we now call Kundalini syndrome. He started seeing things. His body was in so much pain. He kind of got a little bit of the psychosis, which can happen if you awaken your Kundalini in the wrong way. And he says he almost died. But this is the story of his journey through the awakening and then the understanding and then the ultimate management of energy. So not Reiki necessarily, but this deals with your chakras, what happens when we have an awakening, and also discusses kind of how to do it the right way. Because Kundalini awakening is enlightenment. It's really being connected through the crown chakra to the all that is. And when you're in a human body, that's a lot of energy and it can really short out your system. So a fascinating read. And I mean, I always have to include Kundalini, but there were a few others I was going to use instead. But no, we're going to stick with Gopi Krishna, Kundalini.
Yeah. Fabulous.
All right.
Fabulous.
Second book.
Next for me.
So excited. I'm excited.
I know. It's so exciting. Okay. So my second book is a fabulous book by Judy and Noek. It is something, knock 3 times on the ceiling, if you know. But it's fascinating because when you practice any type of witchcraft or natural whatever, you always use herbs and spices and things like that. But you may not necessarily know what they are or how they work. This book, The Modern Witchcraft Guide to Magical Herbs, is a fascinating book because it teaches you all about magical herbs, what they are, where they grow, how to use them. And you do have a lot of these in your cabinet, in your pantry, in dried form, of course. But I mean, it's so amazing that all these things are of the earth and they do so much. And you put them together, throw a little spell together, poof, you've got instant amazing things happening. It is a fabulous resource book, and it's a great book to get you started on a magical herbalism journey.
Ooh, thank you. I don't have that book. Now I want to get that book. Now this next book, I want to see if you've read it. The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot.
I did read that book.
Did
that
you read
is
it?
Actually a book that I read.
So this, I think, was released in the mid-90s, and it's all about quantum physics and really the power of observation and how your observation and your intention changes the known universe. It starts off very scientific, and for me, I'm just like, what am I reading? I don't get it.
It was very it was uncomfortable for me because I did not understand so much of it.
Right. Well, luckily, I'm married to a mathematician and a scientist, and I'm able to.
You're married to 2 men?
Well, he's a mathematician, but my previous husband was also a mathematician, and so I was able to ask about certain concepts and things like that. But he moves fairly quickly from the scientific part of it into mind and body, and then into the paranormal. The whole thing is really a foundational work to introduce the idea that paranormal activity, things that are happening in the supernatural world, that these things are real. They're actually happening. And we get into like seances, and we get into ghosts, and we get into Sai Baba and different gurus. And it's like super, super fascinating. Again, this was written by Michael Talbot. He passed, I don't think he did not live to realize how important this one book was. It's such a well-written book. And if I can understand these principles, because again, this is not, I'm very, very right-brained. I'm not a scientific thinker. I don't know how to divide anything or subtract or add. But if I can understand these concepts, with a little help, if you have to Google something in the beginning, I know anybody can. But then when he starts getting into the paranormal stuff, it is just riveting, fascinating.
That's
the
what clicked me
holographic
in.
universe.
That
Yeah.
clicked me right in because, that's me.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So for my third book, I would have to say, get it, is a book you recommended.
Oh, okay. I love when it's about me too.
It's a book about you.
Oh, yeah.
It's by Gordon Smith, Intuitive Studies.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Well, I mean, if I had to, all the books on intuitive studies and mediumship. But I really like this because, he's touted as, Britain's most accurate medium, and he really breaks down intuitive studies and just how you kind of go about developing this ability that we all have. I mean, we all really have it. It's just, there are people that believe, no, you have to be born that way. Some people it's just there. It always has been, and it's super easy for them. And then there are those of us that we have to work a little bit harder to get at it. I am one of those people. I've always been able to connect, but it's never been oh, you want to talk to somebody in spirit? Hold on. It's never been like that for me. But I have found that it has always been when it is absolutely necessary for the other person. So then I feel like it is right on time. But this is a great book and it's not a very long book. And I read it literally in the course of a couple hours because when I start reading, I can't put things down. But I like it because it was a very easy read. It was a fun read. It was kind of matter of fact, and it just when you're done reading it, you're like, oh, is that all there is to it? Like, really, it's fascinating. So I love that book. So thank you for recommending it.
You're welcome.
And by the way, can we do honorable mention when we're done? Just
thank you, because I'm just thinking to myself, I have got to switch this up. I have got to switch one of my books.
We'll do honorable mention.
Okay, but hold on, because my next book has to be something different. Hold on. Okay, this should have been this is probably one of my number one books. The Occult by Colin Wilson. I don't know if you know who Colin Wilson is as an author, but he has written dozens upon dozens of books, kind of like Brad Steiger back in like the 70s and 80s, and partially the 90s. Anyway, but Colin Wilson, I think he passed within the last 5 years. He was so prolific on the occult, on the supernatural. He wrote about Rasputin. He wrote about Aleister Crowley. He just wrote about all these things. And it wasn't that he gave an opinion, although there's probably an implicit bias, like he was a believer. But he just documented so many different paranormal, supernatural, and occult experiences, ranging from the spiritualists and seances and bilocation and past lives and Atlantis and Edgar Cayce. Like this book right here, though, there's just so much good stuff. He talks about everything. And so if you want to get into a primer on the occult, and the occult, some people I think when they hear the word occult, they think, oh, scary Satanism.
Yeah.
No. The occult just means the mysteries. Mysteries. That's all mysteries. It is. The hidden.
I want to know what in the middle of your book was so fascinating, because your book has a natural part to it. That's it. Go back. You see?
Right there? Here?
Look at yes. Flip out. No, the big section. That whole go the other way.
The other way. Right here?
Okay, right there. What is on that page? Because it was actually calling out to me.
The 19th century magic and romanticism. This is going to deal with spiritualism, seances, mediums.
Right up my alley.
The different kinds of mediums, yeah. Oh, this is just such a good book for anybody interested in this subject. You got to read Colin Wilson. He is so good.
Got to read it. Read it. All right. Third book, right?
Fourth book.
Oh, my Lord. Fourth book. Okay. So, I get into like witchy stuff. So, this is a great book, Pierre Macedo, The Ultimate Book of Magic and Witchcraft.
Where's the pure theremin? I've got to put it on. Here we go.
I know.
I love it. Okay, well, tell me what's in that book. I mean, it's
short book. It's a short book. You can read it in probably 2 hours, maybe less. It literally gives you. It's a how-to book, and it's on the practice of magic, rituals, and spells. So if you have a foundation in it and you're not exactly sure how to execute, this is a great little how-to book that actually gives you principles and foundations, and you can actually get to like spell work. It's such a fun and fascinating little read, and it's to me it's like a little Bible of it. It's something that you should have if you get into that sort of thing.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Because you know me, I like a little spell or two.
Yes, we do know. All right. So my last book that I recommend so often that I just had to include it is The Convoluted Universe by Dolores Cannon. I think this is book 1 out of 5 or 6 books.
Dolores is a great author.
Yes, she is. And so Dolores was a hypnotherapist who developed the technique that we call QHHT, which allows the practitioner to take clients or patients to a very somnambulistic hypnotic state wherein, for whatever reason, they are able to connect with cosmic intelligence. And in the Convoluted Universe, we have just different chapters of her patients and the things that came through from aliens and different light beings. So there's a chapter on Atlantis. There's a chapter on the repository planet of knowledge. Did you know there was a repository planet of knowledge? Probably not, because you haven't read The Convoluted Universe. Not you, but like whoever's watching. The energy devices, different types of energy devices, the energy and the assistance. Oh, and she's just got a lot of really good books. She has a book about Jesus, like the information that came through one of the hypnotic sessions about Jesus and the Essenes. She was a great lady. She started the Ozark Publishing Company and developed different conferences through the publishing house. Her daughter now runs it, and just a lot of cool books that are coming out of that. Her work was just invaluable. I love Dolores Cannon. If you don't know who she is, check her out on YouTube. There's a lot of video, and you can catch yourself up. The Convoluted Universe, at least book
Convoluted
1.
Universe.
You got to read it. All right, what's your final book?
Right. My final book. But I can't wait for honorable mention.
I know.
My final book is, and it's by Judika Illis.
Okay.
It is the Encyclopedia.
Oh my God.
Of 5,000 spells. This is a compilation of manifestos, of grimoires, of, just people's book of spells. It's from way back. Really old. Like, there are things in here that, okay, first of all, I should just say, don't go in here and start doing things, because a lot of these ingredients will kill people.
Really?
Even touching them might kill you. So I have this as a reference book only, but look how thick this book is. It is literally every page there. I don't know if you can see, but there are a ton of little. It is so chock full of stuff. 5,000 spells in this. Now there are things that you can do, but I truly you need to read. You need to research ingredients, because way back in the day, stuff was killing folks. So be very, very careful. But it is such a great reference book, and it's so fascinating to see what people did way, way back in the day for like spells and rituals and things like that. It's just so amazing. I love the book.
I love it. And I'm going to have to get it. Let's make a list of these 10 books, and we will include it in the description of this video, and we'll also include it in the description of this podcast, wherever you're listening or watching it, so you can go and just check it out, and maybe we'll have links too. That's a lot of work. I'm not going to do links. We'll just do the names.
We'll just do the names. You could do the research.
You can do the rest, but we'll make sure that you guys have access to.
And most of these books you can probably get on Amazon. So
100%. So let's do a couple of
honorable mentions. Okay, go ahead.
All right. First one is, nothing in this book is true, but it's exactly how things are. Now, if this book doesn't blow your mind and make you go, huh? I don't know what does. I think it's largely based on the work of Drunvalo Melchizedek, who of course is the Flower of Life guy. But we've got stuff about light beings. We have stuff about dimensionality, the Philadelphia experiment. We've got illustrations. This whole thing, the Hall of Records, the Great Pyramid, the Right Eye of Horus, everything, Lemuria, Atlantis, Kabbalah, the Tree of Life. It is crop circles. Like, this book right here is just, it's crazy. And I remember reading it going, really? And then by the end, I was just like, yeah, really? The paradigm shift that takes place by this little book. It was in my top 5, but then I had to put the occult in, but that's how good this book is. Honorable mention. This is by Bob Frissel. Okay, what is your first honorable mention book?
My first honorable mention. How many honorable mentions are we going to do?
Just 2. Because we got to end this podcast. We're almost at 2 hours.
So I want to include a book in its sequel.
Yes.
Okay.
That's cheating, but yes.
By Stephen A. Hermann, Mediumship Mastery 1 and 2.
Okay. All right.
Fascinating because it is the mechanics of how to receive spirit. So it literally just breaks it down for you. It's almost textbooky, and he kind of gives you some sort of case study, like how so-and-so did it. And it's really fascinating, but it literally breaks down mediumship step by step. Yeah, I love it. Fascinating.
All right. My last book to recommend is The Eighth Tower by John A. Keel. Now, you may recognize the name John Keel. Of course, we call things Keelian because that's the kind of influence this dude had. He wrote The Mothman Prophecy, and he was an paranormal investigator kind of a person looking into interesting experiences and rendering opinions about that. So this is kind of the B-side of the Mothman Prophecies. This is what didn't make it into the book, but this is even better than the Mothman Prophecy. So if you're interested in UFO stuff, aliens, UFOs, serendipity, synchronicity, fairy, folklore, things of that nature, you got to get into John A. Keel because he's fantastic and he's a great writer, but definitely The Eighth Tower. This book right here is a game changer. So honorable mention for sure. All right, what's your last honorable mention?
Right. My last honorable mention, clearly I have a theme going on, but this book is so much fun. It's by Angelie Belard, or Belard, however you want to say. It's a very short book to read. HooDoo for beginners, folk magic.
Okay.
It's so interesting because folk magic is just so fascinating, but it's like everyday things.
Is folk magic the same as earth magic? Like
ish.
Okay.
It's very close. Okay. Yeah, it's very close. It is so much fun to read this book. It just gives you the basics and a nice foundation to begin working folk magic. Most of these ingredients, some of them you might be able to find in your home. A lot of them you're going to have to buy. But it's very fascinating. These things work. Mm-hmm. And as with everything, your belief means everything. But I mean, a lot of people back in the day were using HooDoo. I mean, there were tonics and things to help heal people. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just so amazing. So if you have any propensity towards that sort of thing, it's such a great book to read.
Fabulous. Thank you, Bryan, for bringing your books. I love books. I need to read more, and in fact, I'm going to start incorporating daily reading, not like devotional reading necessarily, but daily reading as part of my spiritual practice in addition to prayer and meditation, because I think the Bible says, think on these things that are lovely, think on these things that are pure, that are good. Like, fill your mind with things that feed your soul and your curiosity and your interest. And we can do this through listening to teachers, watching good high vibrational videos, and listening to music. But this is one of the most powerful ways to get that good knowledge and information into your consciousness. And when it roots there, it begins to grow there. And that's how we start seeing the evidences of this kind of stuff, aliens, in our actual life. Through just reading books. I believe it.
I believe it too. Can I get an amen?
Amen.